Welcome to Films and Stuff with your hosts, Pete Mitchell and Ethan Hunt.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Films and Stuff. I'm Ethan, joined by Pete. What's up, Pete?
Not much. How are you?
It is time for our weekly stream or skip episode. Past few weeks, both of us have cooled down. Pete was riding a hot streak earlier in the year, cooled down a little bit. I've been kind of up and down. So, Pete, you want to reiterate the rules and introduce the audience to what we had to review for this week?
Absolutely. So, earlier in the year, Ethan prepared a list of TV shows for me to watch, and I did the same for him. And the idea is that every week, we randomly assign ourselves to watch one of those TV shows, watch at least 2 episodes, if not more, and then on that basis determine, is that show worth streaming or skipping? This week, we had 2 shows, one on Paramount Plus. I originally said it was on Hulu, but it's actually Paramount Plus, called Rabbit Hole, and I had Silo on Apple TV Plus.
Should we do spoiler alert? Both of these shows are exceptional.
It's the first time in 2023 that we've got a double must subscribe, people.
Is that right? It's the first time this year.
First time this year.
Pete, I will let you have the honors. Tell us about Silo on Apple TV Plus.
So Silo is Apple TV Plus's latest sci-fi show, and I am super pumped that I got assigned this. I've been wanting to watch this show for a long time, since it came out. Having said that, I held off because it was a show that Ethan had put on my list. So I said, okay, no problem. I will save myself. And I'm glad I did, because what that allowed me to do was it stockpiled 6 episodes for me to watch.
Oh, yeah.
And spoiler alert, after I watched the first one, I didn't realize it, but 7 hours had passed and I had watched the 6th one.
You watched all 6 in a row?
I couldn't stop myself. It was so good. It was not
so
just
good.
It's unbelievably good.
Yeah, I have not watched as many as you, but I've watched 2 or 3 of them, and I'm completely with you. Give us the rundown. Give us the premise.
So the premise is actually quite simple. Something very bad happened a long time ago in the past. We're talking like 10, 20 generations ago. So, a couple hundred years have passed. Mm-hmm. And the outside world is now basically like this hellish apocalyptic landscape.
Right.
People have moved into what's called a silo, hence the name. It's this massive round building. It extends hundreds, if not thousands of floors into the earth and up into the sky. And the idea is that everything is done indoors. So there are levels for farming, there are levels for power generation, there's levels for, infrastructure and system support like IT, etc. All of that stuff is on different levels. And there are effectively 3 classes. So there's the deep down where power is generated, where, waste management, sewer management, recycling is done. So that's considered the quote unquote lowest class. Even though they don't call it a class, effectively, this is a caste-based system.
Yeah.
Then you have the mid-levels, right? Where you have mid-level work is done there. And then you have the up tops, which is like the high society. It's also where the center of the government is based. And the government system is very simple. There's a mayor who basically controls the entire silo. And society is very tightly controlled. So like you can't have a child without permission to have a child. And so all women have birth control implanted into them. If you get approved to have a child, the implant is removed from the body, then they're given a year to get pregnant. And if they don't get pregnant in that year, they're no longer allowed to try for the child, and the birth control implant is put back in. So it's a very tightly controlled society. And of course, that It's not good, but you can understand why. It's because population control is a very important thing when you're living in an area which doesn't allow for expansion.
Interestingly, did you catch that there's only like 10,000 people in the silo?
Yeah, something like that. They mentioned the number.
It's not huge, actually.
No, it's not huge, but at the same time, it's
like population-wise, it's not huge, but facility size of the silo, yes, it is huge, right?
So that's exactly right. And you can tell that these guys have been here for a long time because, the technology that you see in there is still old-timey. So you see CRT monitors, that kind of thing. If you still are struggling to understand what the silo is like premise-wise, I highly urge you to watch the movie. I can't speak for the TV series, but there's a movie with Chris Evans called Snowpiercer.
Oh, yeah.
Where you have society has moved on to a single train that's constantly moving because of climate change. The world has become a hellhole. And it's exactly the same concept. The back of the train is where they generate power to create the propulsion for the train to keep moving. And in the front is where all the rich people live. It's almost identical, of course, on a much bigger scale. For this review, I'll tell you a little bit about what happens in episode 1, but then that's it, because the show is so good that I really don't want to talk about what happens more. And of course, I haven't finished the series. There's still more to the show. But effectively, think of it as a murder mystery wrapped in a sci-fi, semi-apocalyptic setting. So in the first episode, we meet Rashida Jones. She works with the IT team. And she's married to the silo's sheriff. And they've wanted to have a child for a long time. She's not been able to conceive. They finally get permission. This is, I think, her third time that she's been given permission. She has the birth control removed. And then they have the clock ticks to show you that time has passed. And after, almost a year is up, she's still not able to get pregnant. Throughout this time, we learned that Rashida Jones is the type of person who has questions about the past. Like, she wants to understand, why are we in the silo? What led us to get into the silo? What happened that made the world a hellscape outside? And what we learned is that the government of the silo a long time ago decided to ban all history. So history of the silo is inaccessible to everyone in society. And there are 3 arms of the quote-unquote government system and leadership system. The first is the mayor's office. The second is what's called the judiciary. This is going to sound really bad, but they're almost like the Gestapo.
Yeah.
And the third is the IT, which creates the systems and gets the silo running the way it should be running. The sheriff's office is like the enforcers. It's the legally appointed enforcers. They uphold the law. And the 3 other arms are the ones who basically determine what the laws and the regulations are meant to be. Anyway, in any case, we also learned that if you say that I want to go out, that is effectively a death sentence. Your wish is granted, and they send you outside of the silo in like what this biohazardous waste suit. And we learned that because Rashida Jones finds out that there's some kind of conspiracy going on.
Right.
And the conspiracy is basically being controlled by the judiciary and by the mayor's office. She's unable to find out what's going on. She is led to believe that even though she's been given permission to have a child, she's not actually allowed to have a child. And she finds out because she cuts herself open and finds a second birth control implant inside her. So she is now sure that she wasn't given permission on a legitimate basis. She was kind of given permission almost as a way just to assuage her fears, or, just to calm her down and to prevent her from being a problem.
Great word.
And so she then says, I want to go out. The sheriff who has to enforce that is heartbroken.
It's her husband. Yeah.
Because he's her husband, and he has to then let her out. And so we see her go out into the steps. She cleans the camera because there are no windows. So everyone's
Right.
got TV screens. The first task anyone who goes out is to go out and clean the cameras. And they do that as kind of like a favor for all the people inside.
Mhm.
And then she takes steps out into the apocalyptic wasteland. And
Yeah.
within like 30, 40 feet, you see her collapse and die.
Yeah.
So that's what we see.
What was hold on. This is a very dramatic moment, right? Because it's the first time we actually see what's going on.
Exactly.
What was your thought like when you saw her walking? Like, what did you think was going to happen?
Oh, I knew she was going to die, but I'll tell you offline. I'll tell you offline because I don't want to even mention it here.
Okay.
But in any case, I was quite positive she was going to die.
Okay.
And so the first episode and maybe even the second episode is basically dealing with the repercussions of that. By that, I mean the sheriff dealing with the repercussions of that. And so towards the end of the second episode, the sheriff decides that he too wants to go out. Because he's always upheld the law. He's always believed that there is no conspiracy. But now that things like this have happened, and now that he starts to kind of uncover that there may be a mystery, he realizes that he should have supported his wife more. He wishes that he could. He has regrets about that. So he decides to go out and effectively kill himself.
Did you think the same thing was going to happen with him? Because his was a little bit more dramatic, right?
His was a little bit more dramatic because he's, of course, a very public figure. He's well loved by the community. For a moment, I thought that he was going to just continue walking forward and nothing would happen.
So did I.
But, of course, he too dies.
Yeah.
And then his replacement is someone that he appoints, which nobody would have expected. It's someone from engineering whose job was primarily to repair the generator. She's this brash, very abrasive figure. She doesn't really want the job, but she's friends with the sheriff and she agrees to do the job. And her idea is that she'll do the job and also try to solve this mystery on the sly. And that's where I am.
Same.
I don't want to say more about this again, only because this is clearly a mystery.
Yes.
It's awesome. I don't know where this show is going, but I'm 100% in. I cannot convince you more that this is a must subscribe. There's just no possible words that you should stop what you're doing and figure out a way to watch this show.
Yeah, I'm fully supporting Pete on this. I've watched some episodes, but fewer than all 6. And my perspective is that it's so good. Absolutely, it's a must subscribe, but it's so good that I want to save it for like when I have a flight or when I have like something that I need entertainment. Like I'm saving it basically for a bad day because I'm so into watching it now. I actually don't want to waste it when I'm eating my breakfast cereal, when I'm staying up late at night and barely keeping my eyes open. I want to watch it when it's like, oh man, this is going to be a miserable flight. I'm sitting in economy middle seat, but it's okay. I've got 6 episodes of Silo to watch. I will totally be okay with it. I'm hoarding it only for that reason.
Yeah.
But if I didn't have that discipline, 100%, I have put down my credit card, but I would put my credit card down today. I would pay for it. I would watch it immediately straight through. It's exceptional.
And you will not regret it because this genuinely is that good. If it weren't for the fact that this weren't a streamer skip, I think I would have done exactly the same as you.
Yeah.
I think I would have watched 1 or 2 episodes, realized how good this show was going to be, and then waited so that I could have binged all 10 together.
Yes.
That is no longer an option for me because I lack that sense of discipline. And I cannot tell you, I have been raving about the show to other friends. This is, you must watch it. And again, you're absolutely right. Focus on watching it. Like this is one of those few TV shows where you want to make sure your phone is switched off. You want to make sure the lights are down and no distractions. This is, you want to be 110% focused on the show.
Yeah. It's very hard to describe that it's not overly fast paced, but it's not slow either. It's kind of like I don't want to say Breaking Bad or Better Call Saul, but it's something where it's not going so fast, but every second is packed with information and detail and very subtle things, right?
100%. And really,
Yeah.
it's really good. Acting is excellent. Tim Robbins is in it. You've got Will Patton's
Rebecca
in
Ferguson,
it. Rebecca
Common.
Ferguson is amazing. Common is fantastic. It's
Yeah.
good. Trust me, you're going to love it.
One last thing to say about this. This is absolutely in the Apple TV Plus wheelhouse. Silo is as inexpensive to make as it sounds. And it's so compelling despite the fact that everything is gray and dingy and dirty compared to Amazon's. I mean, Amazon and Apple both have more money than they can spend. But Apple's strategy is to say, let's make a really good show. Doesn't have to cost $50 million an episode for people to love it. Amazon says, let's throw everything against the wall and make this the most mind-blowing visual spectacle. Is it good and entertaining? Nah, not really. But we'll get people to watch it.
Yeah.
Two diametrically opposite strategies towards content, right?
I think Apple basically said, let's talk about this before we talk about Rabbit Hole, because you actually predicted this almost 6 months ago. So kudos to you.
Thank you.
Just this last week, Apple announced in their WWDC conference, the or whatever it is, their Apple Developer Conference, they announced their Vision Pro or whatever, their VR headset.
Yeah.
So a couple of comments. First of all, I think the design looks stupid. Two, I think the design is nothing that they've produced justifies a $3,500 price tag. We were questioning why Apple would make a streaming platform. It didn't make sense to us. Yes, they have money, but in terms of grand scheme, in terms of revenue, I mean, they make infinitely more money, literally, I think on a scale of 100 to 1, or maybe even 200 to 1, or maybe even 1,000 to 1, selling hardware than they do from their Apple TV program. And so we had speculated, and by I'm saying royal we because I want to ride on Ethan's coattails on this, but we had speculated that one of the things they could do was come up with a VR headset so that they could really use Apple TV to market the idea of an in-home virtual cinema experience. And for those people who can't afford $3,500 or whatever it's going to ultimately cost, because there's going to be more versions of this, they could use the Apple retail stores, which are everywhere in all the cities. They could use that as kind of like a virtual cinema experience where you could set up a small room with 10, 20 of these devices and get the quote unquote cinema experience while sitting in an Apple retail store. And so maybe you can't afford a $3,500 headset for your own viewing pleasure at home, but maybe you could spend $20 to go to an Apple store and watch an Apple movie sitting in one of their chairs with their headset.
One other thing that I got from the release of this is that I think that the headset is now going to be like the App Store. And instead of everyone writing apps to be, iOS compliant or iOS compatible, they're all going to be, the VR headset.
Oh, absolutely.
Right? The idea is that they're going to make all the revenue from, these VR apps now, and everyone's going to do their online shopping by this. They're going to do the Hangouts. They're going to listen to our podcast by this. Everything's going to now be transferred over to this platform, and they needed this hardware to maintain, their market dominance. But I have to say, first of all, it's super exciting. I love the idea. And when the technology is really there to give you an immersive experience, it's going to be life-changing. And scary part, it's going to be culture changing, because you're going to see an entirely new group of people that will be absolutely satisfied in life, making the minimum of minimum wages, entirely antisocial in reality. And as long as they are living in their parents' basement or crashing in a commune and they've got their headset, they could be living a very rich and engaging, stimulating life.
I don't want to sound like this is over the top, but
Say it.
this is going to sound crazy anyway, but this could
It's
literally
true.
be the beginning of Ready Player One.
It is Ready Player One. It's
Yeah.
it's a mixture of Ready Player One, that movie with Bruce Willis, and
Oh yeah,
1984, Adolf Huxley, right? I mean, and it may not be, I mean, we could talk about this forever, and maybe we need to interview a sociologist, but there's not all bad here. You know, you are absolutely going to get a lazy generation that is going to, okay, some people may tour all the different, like wonders of the world. I would expect some people are going to be watching sports matches and cricket matches, and some people are going to do nothing but watch porn or be in like opium dens. It's going to lead to a huge swath of a generation that actually does not produce or do anything. It also could, to be honest, reduce a lot of tensions, anxiety, angry energy that, manifests itself in violence and other bad behavior by ultimately kind of like placating people. Definitely it's going to change traffic patterns. It's going to change higher education. It's not going to leave any area of society untouched, but definitely it's going to have a dramatic impact on everyone. So it's exciting, a little bit scary, but more exciting to see that this is finally coming now to market.
if we're looking at this on the spectrum, I would suggest that Ethan probably falls on whatever you want to call it, the right side, and I on the other, in the sense that I'm a little bit more fearful of what could come from this. I think he's a little bit more excited.
What's the fear? What's kind of like a negative case scenario to you?
Ready Player One, where everyone is living
Yeah.
only online, no one's living
Yeah.
in the real world, and like it becomes more dystopian than it does anything else. Or, on a more comedic level, Wall-E.
I think what you think by Ready Player One, I absolutely agree. I don't think all that is negative, but I absolutely see that as being a viable outcome, that in 20 years, we will have an entire generation that simply does not need to leave their house.
Yeah.
Or not even their house. Again, people may, in Ready Player One, people lived in like trailer parks, right?
Yeah. They're pod, for lack of a better word.
You may see a dramatic number of people who take kind of their social security or their unemployment or their pension or whatever you want to call it, and wherever they live. And they say, I'm totally happy living in this very small, basic, subsidized place. As long as I have my headset, this is my daily reality. I think that's negative when you look at any one person. But I think if you're looking at an entire population, there may be some positive elements of that if it can reduce a lot of the, the violence, and people generally get in trouble when they don't have enough to do it. They don't have enough money to do what they want to do, right?
Yeah.
When they see others have more. So it may, in some ways, lead to some benefits. But again, I see the same risks that you're pointing out, and it's absolutely going to come to fruition at some stage. It's very difficult to have a human relationship, a relationship where there's mutual love and affection and respect, and you work through the natural day-to-day tensions that happen when you live with someone and share a life with someone. I mean, those are hard to deal with in the best of times, right?
Yeah.
When your life is so on demand and you're only exposed to beautiful things, right? In perfect settings, it's very difficult then to readjust your expectations to what is more realistic and obtainable,
Yeah. So look,
anyway,
we don't want to talk about hyperbole. We're not going to speculate. Yeah. We just want to give Ethan his kudos for calling this 6 months ago.
Thank you.
And let's use that as the segue. So Ethan, you had to watch Rabbit Hole on Paramount Plus. Tell me all about it.
So, and you and I didn't know anything about what this was about. We
Not
had
at all.
no idea. So then I found it. It's actually on Paramount Plus, and we're nothing but honest on this show. I subscribed to Paramount Plus. Even before watching the show, I needed to have it. I didn't have a subscription to Paramount Plus. I previously did. I think I canceled it because we weren't watching anything on there. I paid for the subscription. I watched half an episode of Rabbit Hole, and I think I messaged you.
You messaged me immediately, yeah.
I think I was breathless. And I was just like, this is maybe the best show on television right now. It is exceptional. And I watched straight into the second episode. I watched 2 episodes. I'm still breathless about it. I stopped only because it was like midnight-ish. I would have watched the whole season for sure. But again, I was like, do I want to ruin tonight and just be done with it because I can't stop myself? Or do I really want to save this for like a special day, or that day that I've got nothing and I can just like be in my most comfortable pajamas? And I decided to save it. But those 2 episodes I watched, it is absolutely exceptional. And I'll tell you why.
Please.
First of all, stars Kiefer Sutherland. If you have seen Kiefer in 24, this show is not dissimilar to his character there and the overall style. It's not like 1 hour episode corresponds to 1 day, but just the overall pace, the urgency, the getting into this situation, getting out of that situation. If you like 24, you will likely be inclined to like this. If you thought you hated 24, you didn't like Jack Bauer, too much drama, you want a more relationship or, comedy driven show, this is probably not for you. So Rabbit Hole, I'm just going to start with it. I'm not going to give away many spoilers. And again, I only watched 2 episodes, so I don't have many to give. Kiefer Sutherland has his own, let's call it like a PR agency, except they get these very specialized jobs. Example, they have a client, and this client is being investigated for some type of like anti-competitive behavior or something. Their idea is to somehow manipulate their client's competitor being like photographed or seen together, exchanging information with like a member of like the government's like Department of Justice or regulatory authority or something, right? So they manipulate this in a very clever kind of Mission Impossible type way, where through all these like different, like logistical tricks and clever things, they get 2 people that have never spoken with each other to be basically put together like in front of the same taxi, getting a door for one another, just through like their own coincidence, right? And they take all these photos of them then because they've kind of like framed this up. The people actually never spoke to each other. But when their client is able to like submit this information, the implication or the optics is that their competitor is working with the government to kind of create a smokescreen for their client. And their client obviously didn't do this very bad thing because look, it's all a setup, right? So this is a type of kind of corporate espionage, counter-espionage, specialized PR that him and his firm do, okay? He's a fixer in another way.
Got it.
So we see a few of their schemes, and they're super interesting the way that they pull them off, right? Highly, highly coordinated. He's got a team of pretty interesting people. They've all got kind of like a specialty. It's a little bit like manipulation and sleight of hand and cleverness all at the same time to kind of make these things, a heist movie in a way, right? And you love a good heist movie.
Love it.
Then it turns out that one of Kiefer's clients kind of double crosses him. And now Kiefer is alleged to have done something bad. I guess that's the best way that I can explain it. So Kiefer is now wanted for committing a crime. He says, man, I can't believe my client kind of double crossed me. They used me and basically kind of made it seem like I'm the bad guy and I'm responsible for this thing, even though I was supposed to kind of be setting up, their competitor. Okay. So he's like, don't worry, I'll get to the office. We'll all sort this out. If the police come or the FBI comes, like just hold them off. I'll get to the bottom of this. He's on his way to the office. The office explodes.
What?
Yeah. Now Kiefer is really on the run saying, wait a second, a double cross I can manage. This, I have no idea what's going on. Everyone in my office is dead. He's been somehow dramatically double crossed. His client is dead. So he's trying to kind of like unsolve the mystery, going down the rabbit hole in terms of how this happened and who's actually behind it. End of episode 2. And one of the things, Pete, you and I consistently rail against, is whenever we see we saw this in Citadel, right? The obvious plot twist. Oh, yawn, it's her father. Oh, yawn,
she's got a kid. Yeah.
Right. I have to say, the plot twists in this one, I really, really did not see coming. It was exceptional. Again, another reason, actually, I put it to the side. This is something you and I have to watch Paramount Plus doesn't have the same thing as Amazon for Watch Party, but we should be watching these kind of like at the same time and exchanging notes about them. It will be twice as fun.
Okay.
The first one is very heisty related. And I was like, wow, that's really cool. Like I was really into the first one. And then at the end of the first one, it shows the double cross. I was like, whoa, I absolutely did not see that coming. And then the second one goes into now he's totally on the run and he's got to unravel things. And I was just like, wow, like this is just great. There's no guns, but he's very much the same Jack Bauer character.
But not working for like a government, like military organization of some sorts, right?
As of now, absolutely not. But if you and I were going to probably like break this down and put some conjecture in there, I would assume there's going to be a much bigger government conspiracy, and we're probably going to learn what his background is or something. Like there's obviously a lot more layers to this. So when you talk about anything like this, I would say it's not unlikely that there's going to be somehow a government agency involved that he used to work with or has been monitoring him or something like that,
Okay. Because if it were, then it becomes like 24 all over again, right?
Yeah. 24, I think of like a lot of guns and shootouts and like more actiony stuff. This is not really that, but it's definitely like the same style. If there's like 24, but no weapons, this would be kind of it,
Okay.
But I saw these two and I was just like, oh, this is so, so, so good. And Kiefer honestly plays that character pretty well, like he's got his sweet spot in life. And this is definitely his sweet spot.
Absolutely.
So anyway, that's Rabbit Hole. If I had to, I would absolutely binge the whole thing overnight. I would not eat. I would not sleep. I would not shower. I would not have water. I would just straight up watch all of these. It's only because it's so good and I really want to enjoy it that I held off. It is definitely must subscribe. I did subscribe, but even after watching the first one, I would have paid whatever is the amount per episode all over again. It's super good.
Well, I've already put it on my watch list, and I'll probably actually start it this weekend.
Oh, yeah. That is a very, very successful week for you and me on Stream and Skip. 2 must subscribes.
This is one of the few wins we've had, and this is actually, this is our dream when it comes to a Stream or Skip episode.
Oh, yeah. It really is.
Not only did we get 2 great shows, we also got a prediction 6 months in advance, 100% on the nose.
Boom. We're killing it, huh?
Indeed. Anyway, so if you like Rabbit Hole, if you like Silo, if you have any other shows you'd like us to watch and put on to Stream or Skip, reach out to us, let us know. The easiest thing you can always do is like this video and leave a comment and subscribe to our channel. That always helps us out. You can tweet at us at F&S Podcast. You can DM us on Instagram at Films and Stuff Podcast, or email us aloha@filmsandstuffpodcast.com.
We would love to hear from you. If you've seen Rabbit Hole, if you've seen Silo, Give us your feedback. If you have not, please have a watch and let us know if you like them as much as we did.
We were so excited by Silo and Rabbit Hole, we forgot to give each other our assignments.
That's right. What's our assignment this week?
For this week, you will be watching a show called Truth Seekers on Amazon Prime.
Truth Seekers on Amazon Prime?
Yeah. And I will be watching Treason on Netflix.
Oh, those both seem good.
I hope so. Charlie Cox is in mine and Simon Pegg is in yours, so it should be good.
Okay. Super excited about that. So if this week wasn't enough, join us next week and listen to 2 new recommendations or not that we have for these shows. Yeah.
Indeed.
All right. Thank you, Pete. Thank you, everyone. Have a lovely day ahead.
Thanks, Ethan.
Bye now.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Films and Stuff. If you haven't already, please subscribe and review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever podcasts are downloaded. Films and Stuff. There is no substitute.